Spin Creations presents Rudia's Diary. Lights of the Dead World.
My trip through in-between mists was nearly over, but the tingle in my body was freakishly annoying this time. Finally, I felt some dirt under my feet and my eyes started adjusting to the dim light. What I saw wasn't too inviting. The sky was a swirl of angry purple clouds, and the ground nothing but jagged rocks and crumbling ruins as far as the eye could see. This place had clearly seen better days. I hitched my pack higher on my shoulder and started walking. If this dump had any ancient treasures or magic items worth snatching, they'd be tucked away somewhere. I just had to find them first. The wind whipped my hair around my face as I climbed over the remains of what might have been an old castle or temple once. Now it was little more than a pile of mossy stones. "What a pit," I muttered, hopping down into a courtyard with a cracked fountain in the center. I peered into the dry basin, but of course it was empty. With a sigh, I moved on, scuffing my boots through the dirt and scanning the area. A glint of light caught my eye. I hurried over to a crumbling wall where something shiny poked out between the bricks. I dug it out eagerly, only to find a worthless scrap of tin. I tossed it away in disgust. This place was already getting on my nerves. But I wasn't about to leave empty-handed. I pressed deeper into the ruins, keeping an eye out for anything valuable. The farther I went, the darker it got, with more clouds rolling in to block out the pale sun. It matched the gloomy ruins perfectly. I felt energized, ready to find whatever valuable may be hidden in this place. I was prepared for extensive search. It wasn't my first time scavenging some ruins after all. I climbed up a pile of rubble to get a better view. There were only broken structures and hills all around. Suddenly, I saw the dome of a nearby tower light up in a series of rhythmic flashes. 1, 2, 3. Then, a pause, and 1, 2, I counted. My heart quickened. This world was clearly dead, and the tower itself lay in ruins like everything else around. But this light could mean that some ancient artifact was still there, emitting its energy. And the rhythmic flash that big indicated something extremely precious. If it was the Orbelix, a shiver of excitement ran through my body. It would be the discovery of the century in my world. Undoubtedly, it could be sold for a lot. I slid back down the slope and hurried off towards the tower. The wind picked up, making my cloak billow behind me dramatically. I had to stifle a laugh at how theatrical it seemed. But I didn't slow down. My mind raced with thoughts of what I might find. Even if it wasn't the Orbelix, it almost certainly was something precious, and no mere tin that only shined like gold. The possibilities made my fingers tingle with anticipation. The path was straight. Little stones crackled beneath my boots. Broken pillars on both of my sides marked the way. But soon I halted, listening attentively. I could hear a faint sound of laughter carried on the wind from somewhere near the tower's entrance. It wasn't something that fitted this place. It didn't sound ominous, but rather like gentle tinkling of silver bells. I slowed down, moving as stealthily as possible. As I drew nearer, I noticed two small figures in white darting among the rubble. Children? Here in this lifeless place? I stopped, not wanting to startle them. As I watched from behind a collapsed pillar, the two girls came into focus. They seemed no older than 10, with delicate faces and flowing gold hair. Yet their skin glowed faintly, casting a soft radiance around them. They wore simple white dresses that shimmered as they jumped playfully from stone to stone. What was that? How these kids could exist here? This land appeared as dead as rocks it was made of. Before I could see more, one of the girls looked up and met my gaze. They froze, then grabbed each other's hands. In the blink of an eye, they vanished. No noise, no flash of light, simply gone. I stared at the empty space and shivered, suddenly uneasy. Their presence here was unnatural. I thought that maybe it was some spectral remnant of the life that once was here. But on the other hand, perhaps I should be more careful treading forward. At this moment, the tower's top lit up again in the same rhythmic fashion as before. My thoughts raced back to the artifact, pushing all caution aside. I pressed on towards the gate in the outer wall of that broken tower, which now appeared more like a small stronghold. I stepped into a yard and looked up. The sky above was covered by a black cloud that swirled weirdly, but I didn't have time to think about it. I scanned the shadowy place, looking for any signs of spirits or ghosts. But nothing was there. I moved on to the other end of the yard where I could see stone stairs leading up to the entrance into the tower itself. A shiver ran through me as I heard a voice behind.
You seem lost, little traveler.
I whirled around, ready to pull my dagger. There, right in a gateway I just passed through, stood a woman. Her dress glowed white like the full moon. Her body emitted a soft glow. I took a wary step back. But the shiny woman just stood there calmly. An inhumanly beautiful face gazed at me. I stood still, stunned by this vision. She looked like those child girls outside, though fully grown. Her voice sounded like whisper but was completely audible and reverberated in the air. I hesitated, then slowly released my grip on the dagger's hilt. I'm just an explorer, I said. She studied me with an intensity that made me want to fidget. I had the uncanny sense she could see right through me, discerning my true motivations.
Few come here by chance, and even fewer with innocent intent. And you are not from here. What brings you to this lonely dominion?
I was just curious of this world and its ruins, I replied.
Curious or greedy?
The shiny woman's eyes bored into mine, and I had to suppress a shiver. She could see right through me. What does it matter? I asked with false bravado. This place is dead. No one guards it. But she only drifted closer and whispered further.
Despite greed in your eyes, you're naive and innocent. Stay here too long, and you may lose something much more precious than you hope to find here. Go back.
A cold wind sent my cloak snapping around me. I glanced behind my shoulder nervously. When I looked back, the shiny woman was gone. But because of her words, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was something more than just some spectral appearance. I stood there, peering into the darkness, hands clenched into fists. Perhaps she was right, and I was meddling where I shouldn't. But the greed for the unknown artifact urged me forward. With gritted teeth, I jumped onto the stairs. I would not leave this place empty-handed. I crept up to the tower's entrance, one hand on my knife. The massive doors stood cracked open just enough for me to slip through into the dark interior. I felt my way along the walls, blinking against the gloom. Slowly going up the spiraling stairs. There, a faint light up ahead. I moved toward it and found myself in a large circular chamber with a high, domed ceiling. Sickly violet flames leaped in braziers mounted around the room, barely illuminating the intricate runes carved into every surface. In the chamber's center stood a tall figure in sweeping deep purple robes, embroidered with strange sigils that pulsed with red light. His back was to me. Dark power crackled in the air around him. I stood still. The hairs on my neck prickled as I sensed something really dark and unsettling radiating from this stranger. He turned, eyes flashing from the depths of his hood. Even if that was only a ghost of a past, I felt he possessed great power. Power he clearly wasn't afraid to use.
Welcome, little moth. Come, warm yourself by the flames.
His voice reverberated around the chamber. The sudden feeling of malice hit my heart as if it was a dagger. His imposing figure had something about it that struck me with fear. In a blink of an eye, I knew that his power was something way beyond my stealth abilities. It certainly wasn't a ghost or even a common mean spirit. At this moment, I realized I should never come to this place. But it was the first time when my curiosity, confidence, and naivety of all things busted me for good. The shiny woman was right. I made a step back, my skin crawling. The power coming from that dark figure throbbed against me, nasty and evil. I had to escape. My hand fumbled for the stone hidden in my tunic, the one artifact I always kept close, my safeguard of last resort, a single-use charm that would transport me to safety when all other avenues were closed. But the cloaked man rose his hand, and suddenly I found myself few feet into the air, surrounded by a dark orb of sorts.
You should not have come here, little thief.
I tried to scream, but an invisible force clamped my throat shut. The figure gestured, and the dark orb started tightening around me. I could feel its rising pressure against my body. The hooded one drew nearer, his pale moon eyes piercing me.
Let's unlock this little locket.
He hissed, forcing my eyes to look into his. I thrashed against my binding, but it was no use. Helpless, I felt him sifting through my thoughts and memories as one might shuffle through a deck of cards. He pierced my mental defenses, breaking barriers I didn't know I had. He rifled through my memories and innermost thoughts with callous indifference. I couldn't shake the feeling that he was looking for something very specific. Memories of other worlds I traveled through the years. But also, me personally. I felt like the innocent child again. His eyes all around me trying to penetrate my being, but unable to crush that last barrier. The more he looked, the more I felt his interest in that part of me. I thrashed against the dark bonds, but escape was impossible. Just when I thought I would pass out, the onslaught ceased. Gasping, I blinked away tears. I still couldn't see his face, but could swear that I felt him smiling with viciousness.
It seems you are no mere thieving moth after all. A misdancer, coming here, just into my hands. And most precious, your hidden innocence, you don't even know you have.
He released me from the orb. I collapsed on the floor before him. All my strength gone. I could barely move. He turned away and started walking to the chamber's center. My fingers searched for the amulet underneath my clothes. It was my last desperate hope, though I had no idea if it would even work. I grasped the stone tightly, shouting the activation word. Nothing happened, and the sorcerer turned to me again, his hand stretching towards my body. I felt darkness pushing on me, and it seemed like the whole chamber would collapse out of that pressure. The ghastly voice of the sorcerer reverberated as if coming from a deep well, but I couldn't discern any words. Then I noticed stone's vibration. It surrounded me with dusty, gray light. Yes. It worked. A sudden hope and relief flashed through my body. A vortex of mist sucked me away into the between space. I was falling through darkness, plummeting. The force of it drove the breath from my lungs even as I rejoiced. The amulet had worked. Moments later, I slammed into something solid. Pain lanced through my side, but I barely noticed over the dizzying relief of escape. Scrambling to my hands and knees, I found myself in a familiar forest. I shivered as the anxiousness drained away from my blood, leaving me cold and exhausted despite the warm, dappled sunlight. What had I stumbled upon? And how I could escape? Did that dark sorcerer just overlook my thoughts about the stone in his search for other things? Or did he let me go on purpose? Will my knowledge, stolen from me, be of danger to anyone? And why he was so interested in me? All these questions spiraled around my mind, even though I barely was aware of them, and I would not be able to articulate them fully at that moment. My mind was still stunned and dizzy from the encounter. And in fact, I didn't want to think about those things. I just wanted to find a warm place and stay hidden in it for a while. I never wanted to come back to this again.